Hi guys, and welcome to the Sunderland vs Cardiff match preview. It feels like an absolute age since I last sat here and recorded a video, since that last victory, that review of the Sheff Wednesday game. But now we are back in the thick of it. Of course, we're welcoming Cardiff to the Stadium Light on Saturday, a 3 p.m. kickoff. That's something that we haven't seen in a while either, I don't think. At least from what I can remember, it feels like an age since Sunderland had a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday, which that should be the norm. But of course, with Sky and televised games and stuff, it's just been so up and down all season. We've barely played any 3 p.m. kickoffs, but that's just the way of the world at the moment, isn't it? But anyway, we do take on Cardiff. We welcome Cardiff to the Stadium Light. I will go into the preview in just a moment, but first and foremost, if you could hit the like button for me, it would be massively appreciated. And subscribe if you are new. I keep on saying it. I've been saying it for the last couple of months now. There's so many of you guys that are still watching. There's still over 50% of the viewers that are watching week in, week out, and you're not yet subscribed. So if you do, it'd be so appreciated. And of course, the returning viewers, the regular viewers anyway, of course, I massively appreciate your support as well. But get into it. I've just watched the Rodgers pre-match presser, and there are a handful of things to talk about. Firstly, one of the first things he was asked was about injuries, and Poveda being the main focus of this topic. Now, Poveda for me, it's been an absolute waste of money. He's in a big contract as well, a long contract, and he's played a handful. I think he's played less than 90 minutes in total, and hasn't really, been pulling up trees in the few minutes he's had. And Rodgers did say he's still injured. It could be 3-4 weeks. It could be more. He didn't go into too much detail, or at least in the part of the pre-match press that I saw, he didn't go into too much depth. However, when he was asked, how frustrating it's been, he did say, yeah, he's always either been injured or he's not been with the squad for other reasons. But for me, that made me think that there has been some kind of issue with him. We know that the other week, apparently he was late to training or to a meeting or something, so he was left out the squad. So that makes me believe that there has been some issues behind closed doors. And do you know what? A lot of people have given the club a lot of shit about this transfer, but for me, I do understand it. Maybe the 4-year deal, whatever it were that we gave him the long-term deal, that should never have been the case. However, we got him on a free, and at the back end of his career with Sheff Wednesday last season, and he did look absolutely fantastic. He was a gem for them, particularly coming towards the back end of the season. So to pick up an informed player of that quality, and he wasn't injured at the time, or he didn't seem to be injured at the time, it did seem like a bit of a no-brainer, to bring in an informed lad on a free. But of course, it's just absolutely gone to shit, which has happened with so many Sunderland players in the past who have been injury-prone, and this time it hasn't worked out for us, and it's looking like a very, very poor signing and a massive waste of money. And if reports are to be believed, he is the second highest earner, only below Enzo Lafay. So, yeah, not a great business, is it? But he didn't really touch on any other injury news, so I'm hoping that I'm pretty sure that everything else is kind of as you were type thing. A couple of things I do want to mention as well. Of course, Jewison Burnett. Okay, the curious case of Jewison Burnett, of course. We signed him a couple of seasons back, and he seemed like a really exciting, raw, up-and-coming winger for me. And, he scored that brilliant last-minute equaliser against Watford. He got bit pieces here and there. He had that brilliant assist against Southampton, I think, with last season. And whenever we saw him, he looked raw, but he looked like he had a bit of potential about him. And then he just disappeared. And there's been this weird thing about him. Like, people have seen him out and about, just wandering about on his own in Sunderland, in Newcastle, and other places in the North East, just wandering about. And he just seems like he's just a lost child. There was not a rumour, a Sunderland branch, I think it was the Bilbao branch on Twitter, did say yesterday that within their branch they had English foreign language teachers, and apparently the club actually approached them and said, could you help Jewison with learning the language and what have you? And they said, of course, anything to help the players. And then the club just didn't get back in touch with them. They just basically didn't take them up on their offer, even though they asked for it, if that makes sense, which is just, well, it doesn't make sense. It's a weird one. So I feel like he's been left stranded a little bit, the poor lad. But yeah, I feel like he's just kind of been left to rot, sort of. Maybe he doesn't know the language at all, and I don't think he's really been helped with it, which, again, I'm just speculating, but it just seems really poor from the club in that sense. But it looks like he's on his way out to a Ukrainian side, which is probably for the best. It hasn't worked out. I thought there was a player in there somewhere, or maybe at least a bit of potential, but again, it's another one that hasn't worked out, isn't it? But also, the discussion, which I was going to discuss anyway in this video, was the team on the side, the lineup that we're going to go with, the 11 we're going to go with against Cardiff. Now, for me, the number one player that has has to be starting, in my opinion, is Elijah Mayenda. He's come off the back of those couple of goals. If he's dropped and gone back to the bench again, I think it's piss poor management, because we've seen it before when he's in form and then Rodgers sticks him on the bench for 5 games in a row and he might get 5 minutes here and there, and I just don't understand why. He was asked about sticking 2 up top, which I'm going to get into. I do want that. I want to see Eliza and Wilson up top together. But when he was asked that, for me, it seems like Rodgers is more in favour of doing one or the other. Because he did say, there's still 11 games left. Rather than throwing everyone on at once, we need to manage legs. And I do get that. There's 11 games, so, maybe he might start Mayenda on Saturday, and then Isidore comes off the bench, which it isn't a bad play to come off the bench at all. But we've just seen it in the few times we've seen this season when we've gone with a 4-4-2, 2 up top. My qualm has always been that when we do 4-4-2, we're a bit open in the middle. We need extra legs in there, or at least we need an extra effort from the likes of a Job or a Dan Neil or Rigg or whoever he does decide to put in the midfield when it is a 4-4-2. Of course, we don't have the 3 midfielders in there. We only have the 2 in the middle. However, on the counter-attack, we look absolutely lethal when all we need to do is just slip a ball in behind for Mayenda or for Wilson, because they're both rapid. That outlet up top for me is almost too good to just ignore. However, I do think that that Rodgers is going to go with the usual system, the sort of 4-3-3, or the sort of 4, 1 holder, 2 midfielders just in front, and you've got your wingers and your one singular lone striker. I think he is probably going to go with that. I do think he's probably going to start Mayenda. I would be very disappointed if he didn't start Mayenda. Of course, I would like to see, like I say, I would like to see Mayenda and Wilson up top together, but I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to go with one or the other. If he is just hell-bent on the system, then maybe put Mayenda on the right-hand side so he can cut in and link up with Wilson. Roberts actually had a good game last time. I'm not knocking him. It's just Mayenda has to be on the pitch, in my opinion. Of course, Mundell on the other side as well. But it'd be interesting to see what he does at the back as well. The middle 2, I think it's going to be 09 and Mepham, isn't it? But left back, is he going to go with Hjelde again? I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Just then he could say, right, okay, well, I'm trying to get everyone some game time here, which is what he was emphasising in his pre-match presser, that he wanted to try and focus on getting everyone some game time, get some minutes in the legs, in the run into the season. So against Cardiff, who we can't, look down our nose upon by any stretch, despite them being just above the drop zone, we can't just start throwing on bit part players and give them a bit of game time thinking, this is going to be a piece of piss, because it's going to be far from it. And I say it week in, week out, it isn't going to be an easy game against Cardiff. They've won 1 in the last, I think, 5 or 6. Last time out, they played Burnley. I think they're the first team to score against Burnley this year, so that's something for them, isn't it? However, the season just hasn't gone well. Of course, they've changed manager as well. The first game of the season, when we did play Cardiff away from home, I didn't think that we were particularly great, but I didn't think that they were particularly poor. At least I definitely didn't see them as a side that were going to be where they are now. I thought they might be sort of mid-table-ish, maybe. But I didn't expect them to be sliding down the league as much as they have. And again, we can't look down our nose upon it. They do have the threats there, and it depends what kind of Cardiff City's going to turn up. But we need to be right on our own game, focus on us, and try and exploit their weaknesses, which they do have. I will give you my preferred 11, which sadly the graphic that I usually put up, it's just not working at all. So I'm going to do it by mouth. So Pato in goal. I'm gonna persist with him. I know I felt a bit harsh. I have been giving him a lot of stick recently, but it's just from what I've been seeing. Again, it's frustrating because it feels like whenever we get sort of one step forward with Pato, we go 2 steps back. And I criticise players and I will point things out, negative or positive, regardless of the result, be it win, lose or draw. If someone isn't doing great or there's mistakes been made, I will point it out. There's just a lot of worrying signs with Pato for me, and of course, I want him to prove me wrong. Absolutely. Any player who I give a bit of stick or say this isn't good enough or that isn't good enough, I want him to prove me wrong. Any player, I want them to prove me wrong, because that in turn means that Sunderland are doing well. Do you know what I mean? So of course I'm supporting the lad. I want him to do well. However, all I'm doing is pointing out the growing list of concerns I've got for him. But I'm going to go with Pato in goal. Left back, I will go back to Sirkin. I would have 09 and Mepham in the middle. Troy Hume at right back. He's been outstanding, by the way. Now, for me, I would do Dan Neil and Job in the middle, with Roberts on the right-hand side, Mundell on the left, and then Isidore and Mayenda up top. That is what I would like to see, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to go with the usual system. I think Rigg is going to be reinstalled. I think Neil will be the holder. But again, I feel like I've got a feeling that Rodgers, because he did keep on mentioning that we need to use legs and we need to get some game time for certain players, it wouldn't surprise me if he completely shocked us and chucked some head in there or something and made a bit of a balls up of it, because he might take Cardiff for granted a little bit, or might underestimate them, should I say. Hopefully that's not the case. But hopefully we do go all out. We've had a good week to refresh. In terms of my score prediction, I'm going to go with a 2-0 Sunderland win. I'm hoping we get a clean sheet. A nice professional performance, because again, it isn't going to be easy. I'm going to go for 2-0. I'm going to go for Maynard to score 1 and Job to get the other. And speaking of Job and Chris Rigg, they both won the North East Football Writers Young Player of the Year award. So congratulations to them. Thoroughly deserved. They've had phenomenal seasons. Chris Rigg in particular, he's come on leaps and bounds. And if we manage to keep him at the end of the season, if we don't go up, it'll be a miracle. But what a player he's turned out to be. Outstanding player. I just hope we don't run him into the ground and, ruin his season. But yeah, going towards the back end of this season, we really need to keep momentum going. If we have a look at the league table, we're still 8 points or whatever it is from second. But there's 11 games left, 33 points left to play for. So it isn't beyond the realms of possibility, but yes, of course, it's increasingly likely that it's going to be a playoff place for us. But regardless, we need to keep momentum going, keep winning games, and then if we are to go in the playoffs, we go in flying and giving ourselves our best chance to win the thing. Oh, God, the nerves are creeping in, guys. But anyway, let me know down below what you would do in terms of a lineup. What score do you think it's going to be? Let me know. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed. But for now, take care, stay jammy. Away the lads, keep the faith.